Hey everybody, this is Brad Dyke saying hi. How you doing? I'm reaching out to you and just to touch base with you. And I did a hardware review on Proxmox and AI and what to expect in configurations and so on. But it brought up something that's kind of important, at least to me, because I've encountered this a few times already in my 35 plus years of doing all this stuff. So basically, in a nutshell, this video is going to be about the truths of just about anything we ever produce in this industry that coincides also with many other industries. And the realization of whenever we bring something into existence, let's say AI in this case, or let's say TCP/IP, and so on and so on, we have devil's advocate syndrome. Now, the devil's advocate in this case is that when we create something, I don't care, you name it, a rock, how we handle a rock, it could be, working with a shank of steel or a shank of copper or bronze. Um, it really doesn't matter anything because we've done this to every single thing we have either figured out or invented. What am I talking about? Well, the nature about creating something, in this case, an object. We understand that this object has the ability of doing something really great, beneficial, proactive, selfless in nature. It can produce a result, like a shank of bronze. It can cultivate the ground much better than a piece of wood, where you don't have to keep going out looking for another piece of wood once the first piece breaks. It's a great cultivating tool to grow plants, excellent for reinforcing foundations. Just a plethora of options for bronze. It's still kind of soft, it's not the strongest, but it functionalizes. Then one day somebody took a piece of bronze and stuck it in somebody else. And they realized they could use bronze in a weapon-like format. This is the devil's advocate. When an object is brought into use or created or designed into a purposeful use, we tend to also go the full gambit of all the good things for it. And then some of us who don't have the greatest scruples in the world or the greatest moral values find terrible ways to use these things. Chains are a good example of that. Instead of using bronze to build and cultivate and grow communities, they use bronze chains to put people in jail because I don't like you. You don't make me happy. You make me feel bad, whatever. It's about me or the selfishness of us. And this is where technology comes into fray. I have seen this all my life with just about everything the United States of America has produced. It has good and it also has bad. Now, we've done really well to kind of stop things that get really bad. Atomic warfare kind of got tabled. It looks like it's coming back again to some degree, but the reality of the fact is we are understanding that there is equally bad in anything as there is good. Where do we get this? Well, that's easy. If you know anything about the Bible, it comes from us, humans. We are as great of a saint as we are a devil. Or to put it in other words, we can do great good within our spirit, and we can do great harm within our spirit, because that is the whole scope of a human being. So for all of those niceties out there, you can smell great and you can smell terrible and everything in between. And it's true. And the things we design always have followed that same footprint. And in this case, we're talking about AI. AI technologies is and isn't a type of technology that, yes, it can be used in an aggressive format for very good results. The key word is aggressive. In other words, quickly, effectively, efficiently. Now, it can also be used to do terrible things, as in falsifying you, impersonating you, identity theft, scamming technologies designed to completely undermine societies, and so on and so on and so on. It is not, at least at this date, a type of self-recognition, self-repairing, self-improving, self-developing, and procreating technology, at least not as of yet. There are many other things that have to be given to such an algorithm to allow it to do such things as that. And that is the controlling factor we have today to make sure that this is not something that can turn into zombie armies of robotic AI entities. How we choose to go forward with AI intelligence is of two paths. One is the path of giving us longer arms, longer legs, farther sight, better hearing, better touch, and extending our ability to accomplish even more as the human race. Or it can be the other direction. It can be given self-autonomy. It can give self-execution. It can give the authorization and execution of orders that include terminating life. And far worse. Yes, there's definitely far worse. Preservation. If an AI intelligence ever developed the nature of preservation, then, it's time to get worried. But today, we have none of those concerns, except for the fact that everything we develop, there's always that opposite. And just about everywhere, even as something as easy as IRC, internet communication chat, relaying. Yeah, I've seen it. How could somebody turn that into a weapon? But it was. It was turned into a TCP, UTP weapon platform, and it was very effective, what I had. So, when we learn to put things into orbit, we also learn to use those very same things to put bombs on people's heads. We call them interballistic missiles. It's just out there all over the place. My recommendation and my personal testimony to everyone out there, be careful. Don't bring something into the world unless you know for sure, even in its worst day, it's not going to be something terrible for the human race. I have come across and I have developed technologies in my own head and realized, oh gosh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't give this technology out. It's just, no, it's bad. It's not that it isn't good technology. It's great technology. But you could flip it and turn it into a terribly horrific weapon. So I chose not to make those something public for anyone to ever know. I've basically put them away in my head and left them there forever because they are not beneficial, because they can be turned too easily into something bad. This is a battle we all have. And as I'm starting to see a lot of IT guys and gals out there who just need to do something, they kind of turn in this direction. They don't mean to, at least I don't think they mean to, but they do it. And when they do it, the end result is a potential runaway process. And we've seen a few of those happen. One of them is, for instance, the I Love You virus and the worm virus. These were turned into terrible weapons on the internet. And we also have the infrastructure attack algorithms that are out there that cause systems to explode, to overheat, to rupture, and to harm people because we don't agree that they should have them. And I get it, but do you get my story? So in this case, I just wanted to put out there, like I did with TCP/IP6, that anything that has a good value can also be turned into a bad value. And with AI technologies, disinformation is the biggest one. People learning how to get their point across and keep you from having your point made across so that they can be the one who is making that advisement. And if you paid any attention to the internet as of late, there are some significant, actually real plain clear as day blatant AI impersonations and falsifications. And I can't lie to you. I could probably spot them in under 4 or 5 seconds. And I just know right then and there that the fluidity of it and the nature and the presentation very quickly tell me that this is false. This is disinformation. They're just doing this because they want you to click a link so they can make a little bit of change on a cloud provider service called YouTube or something like that. Their motives aren't technically as evil as you think they are, but because they're in the game of disinformation to try to get you to read their stuff, it's selfish. So that's the last part of this. When you guys develop this technology and you're doing it for your company or you're doing it for people, that's selfless. That's great. You've got the right idea and your intent is 100% good. It should always be 100% good. But if your intent is to get yourself somewhere at some level or some capacity because you think you need to be there, because you need to be the bees of the latest, greatest, that's selfish. Understand what you're doing. And no, I'm sorry. Not even your parents can be blamed for that. That's squarely on you and everyone else who's done this kind of stuff. Now, I'll tell you a little story for gamers specifically. There was this game that came out. It was Diablo, right around the time that Diablo 2 came out. And we could get on this thing called Battle.net. And on Battle.net, we could bring a character that we created, and we could go in as human warriors or whatever, warlocks or magicians or orcs or something. We could go into this world, we could team up together, and we can go in and fight battle scenarios. How could you turn that into something evil? Well, the term is called PKIs, player killer interfaces. And what they are basically is other people, because they understood that when you make loot and you capture stuff and you get weapons and things from your battles and engagements and you complete, a dungeon or two, or you got through 3 or 4 levels and you got this one sword or this dagger or something like that, it goes into your locker. But when you engage into a battle, you lose some of your locker, some of your gold, some of your weapons and stuff like that. And PKIs would come in and they had hacked their characters with god weapons, or they had god life, or they were running in a pseudo god mode. And they come in and they kill everybody in your party and they take all your loot and then they leave. And so, okay, that wasn't very nice, but they come back the next day and do it again. And the next day and the next day and the next day. And they're sitting on hundreds of thousands of pieces of gold and 20 or 30 different weapons and all this stuff. And they're being their typical whatever numbnuts they are. And so we said enough. And so the very trick they used, which is the creation of Battle.net and the gaming process, we turned on them. This is what we call double indemnity. We pulled the devil back on the devil. And so we use a whois command to track down the name of the characters who the PKIs were. Like I kill players for a living or something like that. And we hunt them down and we kill them exactly the same way they killed us. But it took longer because our god weapons were against their god weapons and they weren't quite as good as us, but it just took a while, and then bam, we killed them. And then we spawn back and try to make some more kills, and we immediately appear and kill them again. 5 or 6 of us on one person. And we would do this 20 or 30 times until the guy finally says, enough, I give up. This isn't working. I said, yeah, you're right. It wasn't right for you to do this in the first place. We shut you down so that you don't do it anymore. And eventually Battle.net figured it out, and they fixed the problem, that which inevitably made the game more enjoyable. But that's an example, just a simple, stupid example of how people can turn evil for their own gains. That's the real motive. They're doing it because they are selfish and they want to do it for their needs. And this is how they did it. Now, I could tell you more stories about the AOC hacker and on several other encounters I've had, but I thought that was the coolest one of them all, really, because let's face it, we don't always have those encounters, but when they happen, they're real. Well, this is just me having a little bit of fun with you guys, and just try to be on the good side of things when you start doing this stuff. And for those out there who want to harm other people by misrepresenting them, acting like them, and lying for your own personal gain, shame on you. You shouldn't do that. That person didn't do it to you. So what are you doing here to him? And even if they did do it to you, why are you making it worse? But that's for a different debate. Anyways, this is Brad Dyke signing off saying God bless and please take care. Take care. Bye-bye.